Welcome to Storypath English. I am so glad you have joined us once again. Please find a comfortable place to sit, take a deep breath, and let the world outside fade away. Imagine, if you will, that we are sitting together by a warm, glowing campfire. The stars are bright above us, casting a soft silver light over the ground, and the air is soft and still. The only sound is the gentle crackle of the wood and the occasional whisper of the wind through the trees. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey to a place that shouldn't exist. It is a city that defies the laws of nature and the logic of men. It is a place of winding alleys, hidden bridges, and palaces that seem to float upon the waves. We are going to explore the secrets of Venice, the impossible city built on water. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you are standing on a small boat. You aren't on a river or a lake, but in the middle of the sea. All around you is the salty spray of the Adriatic, and beneath you is a shallow, muddy lagoon. There is no solid ground, no forest, no mountains, just mud, salt, and sky. How could anyone look at this swamp and think, I will build a kingdom here? To understand the secret of Venice, we must first go back more than 1,500 years. This was a time of great fear. The great Roman Empire was falling, and fierce warriors from the north, barbarians, like Attila the Hun, were sweeping across Italy. They burned cities and destroyed everything in their path. People were desperate. They had nowhere to run. Have you ever felt so afraid that you were willing to leave everything behind? That is what the people of the Italian mainland did. They looked at the dark smoke on the horizon and then looked out at the marshy, mosquito-filled lagoons. They realized that the barbarians had horses, and horses cannot run on water. The mud was their only protection. In the beginning, Venice was just a collection of tiny islands made of silt and reeds. The first Venetians were poor fishermen and salt gatherers living in humble huts. But they were survivors. They learned to live with the tides. They learned the secret paths through the water that would trap any enemy ship. And, as the years passed, their ambition grew. They didn't just want to hide. They wanted to build something magnificent. But how do you build a heavy stone palace on top of soft mud? This is the greatest secret of Venice. If you were to dive deep under the water of the Grand Canal today and look beneath the massive marble buildings, you would see a forest. Yes, a hidden, upside-down forest. To create a foundation, the Venetians brought millions of wooden logs from the forests of Croatia and Slovenia. They took these logs, sharpened them into points, and drove them deep into the mud one by one. Imagine the sound of thousands of hammers echoing across the water for years on end. They drove these piles so close together that they touched. Now, you might think that wood would rot and crumble in the water. That is what usually happens, doesn't it? But here is the miracle. Because the logs were buried so deep in the mud, they were not exposed to oxygen. Without oxygen, the wood could not decay. Instead, over hundreds of years, the salt and minerals in the water soaked into the wood, turning the logs into something as hard and strong as stone. Can you see it in your mind? Beneath the Rialto Bridge, beneath the Basilica of Streetmark, there are millions of these wooden pillars, standing like silent soldiers, holding up the weight of a dream. It is estimated that for the Church of Santa Maria della Salute alone, they used over 1 million wooden piles, 1 million trees, sacrificed to keep a single building from sinking. As the city grew, so did its power. Venice became the Serenissima, the most serene republic. Because it was on the water, it became the bridge between the East and the West. Imagine the busy docks of Venice 800 years ago. The air would smell of exotic perfumes, expensive silks, and spices like pepper and cinnamon that were worth more than gold. The Venetians became the greatest sailors and merchants the world had ever seen. They were clever and sometimes a little bit dangerous. Did you know that they even stole the body of Street Mark from Egypt? They hid it in a barrel of pork so the guards wouldn't check it, and brought it back to Venice to build their famous basilica. They wanted their city to be a holy place, a place of prestige. If you walk through Venice in your imagination now, you can see the results of that wealth. The palaces are decorated with pink and white marble. The windows are shaped like delicate lace. There are no cars, no horses, no roads, only the soft slap of water against stone and the rhythmic rowing of the gondoliers. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to live in a world where your front door opens directly onto a canal? In Venice, the water is the street. It is a place where time seems to slow down. The light in Venice is different than anywhere else. It reflects off the water and bounces onto the walls of the buildings, creating a shimmering, dancing glow that has inspired artists for centuries. But life in an impossible city is not always easy. The same water that protected the Venetians also became their greatest challenge. Have you heard of the acqua alta? It is the high water. Sometimes, when the wind blows from the south and the moon is full, the sea rises and floods the squares and houses. Imagine waking up and finding 6 inches of seawater in your kitchen. Imagine walking to church on raised wooden platforms because the Great Square is now a lake. The Venetians have lived with this for centuries. They carry their boots and keep their spirits high, but the city is tired. The mud is shifting. The sea levels are rising. There is a sadness in Venice, a beauty that feels fragile, like a glass bird. People often say that Venice is sinking. It is true that the city is slowly descending into the mud, and the salt water is eating away at the old bricks. But the people of the world refuse to let it go. They have built massive metal gates under the sea called the Mosey Project to block the tides. They are fighting for the survival of this miracle. Think about the human spirit for a moment. Why did we build this? Why didn't those early refugees just move back to the land once the wars were over? It is because they had created something unique. They had turned a place of fear into a place of ultimate beauty. They proved that with enough imagination and hard work, humans can build a paradise in the most unlikely of places. When you think of Venice, I want you to remember more than just the postcards and the tourists. I want you to think about the secret hidden beneath the waves. Think of the millions of trees holding up the heavy marble. Think of the thousands of years of salt and struggle. Venice is a reminder that nothing is truly impossible. It is a city built on a foundation of wood, but held together by the will of its people. It is a place where the line between the earth and the sky is blurred, where the reflection of a palace in the water is just as real as the palace itself. As our campfire begins to burn low and the embers glow a deep, soft red, let us sit in silence for a minute. Imagine the moon rising over the Venetian lagoon. The gondolas are tied up for the night, swaying gently. The city is quiet, save for the sound of the tides breathing against the ancient stone. We all have lagoons in our lives, places that seem too difficult to build upon, problems that seem like soft mud. But remember the Venetians. They didn't see a swamp. They saw a sanctuary. They took the materials they had, even if it was just wood and mud, and they built a wonder of the world. What can you build today? What dream are you holding on to that feels impossible? Let the story of Venice give you strength. Let it remind you that foundations can be built in the dark, under the water, where no one sees them, and they can still hold up a palace one day. Thank you for wandering down this path with me today at Storypath English. It is always a joy to share these stories with you. As the fire fades and the night grows deep, I hope you carry the shimmer of the Venetian canals in your heart. The stars are still watching over us, and the air remains still. May you find your own solid ground, even in the middle of the sea. May you have the courage to build your own impossible city, and the patience to wait for your logs to turn to stone. Sleep well, or go about your day with a sense of wonder. Until we meet again by the fire, remember that every great thing ever built started with a single step into the unknown. This is the story of Venice, the city of water, and this is Storypath English. Goodbye for now, my friends.